Welcome back to another exciting episode of this 2007 project truck. Meyer, what are we doing today?
Today we're building a transmission. We're going to build a 1,000-horse transmission to go with this 1,000-horse daily. So
some of the parts that we're going to be using, we'll first start with the power-driven diesel power torque high stall triple disc converter. The boss has said, hey, give this a shot. See how she holds up in a 1,000 horsepower truck that'll see 1,000 horsepower pretty much every day.
Every single day.
And what does that get bolted to, Mark?
Get bolted to the flex plate, obviously the full odd flex plate.
12 volt.
You don't mess around.
And we'll also be using the ARP bolts.
ARP.
I get this question a lot. Hey, we also have Little Man with us today. This is part number 147-2901. This is a Cummins flex plate to crankshaft bolt kit. So we got that. So starting off with our shafts that we're using, we have a power-driven diesel billet standard spline input shaft. We then have a TCS billet intermediate shaft. This is not the Miraging one. This is just the first upgrade in billet. Meyer, what do you got?
We got standard output shaft, billet.
TCS?
I don't know. You can hand it to me.
It's TCS. So again, this will be a standard spline, so this will fit our factory transfer case. Buttoning it all up, we have our PPE deep transmission pan complete with a drop bracket for the filter, which is nice. That way you're actually using the deep pan. Meyer, what are we putting on the inside?
GPZ clutches. We're going to throw some extras in there. Turn up the pressure. It's going to hold all of the horse curves.
And we're doing a full manual valve body on this one with a B&M ratchet shifter. So stay tuned as we dive into this. Okay, so we got the truck on the lift. Doing the tranny is very easy. You're going to drain the fluid out of the factory pan, disconnect the front drive shaft from the front axle. Then we are going to disconnect the rear drive shaft and pull that all the way out. The front one we actually leave on the transfer case because we pulled the transmission and the transfer case at the same time. And there are 3 nuts here. You have your 2 bolts that go across the cross member, 2 on each side rather. You have your 6 torque converter bolts, which you get through from the front. Your 8 bell housing bolts, which are, there's one, and then they kind of go up and around. And then you have your transmission lines. You have 2 of them. Use a backing wrench on this part, and then you're threading this one out. You pull your park neutral safety switch, your shift lever, and then on this truck it does have a TTVA motor, which you can see up there. We'll have to disconnect that. And because this is a manual 4-wheel drive, we're gonna have to disconnect the transfer case linkage right there, and we'll get this thing pulled out. So just a tip for you guys, obviously on the lift it's a little bit easier, but what we do is we use a cordless drill with a barring tool and then a 1/2-inch impact to get the converter bolts.
And this is our shipping guy. So he's still figuring it out.
Struggle busing a little bit. We still love you, Colby.
Get it, son. You on 3, right? Yep. Get it.
Don't forget about that messed up starter.
We'll find it here in a sec. Go. Yeah, you got the technique. Don't need those. Go, Colby, go.
Wipe your mouth. Oh, damn it. All right, whatever.
Good job, buddy.
Throws away the napkin, wipes it with his hand. My boy.
Got your son right there. Going down. Go down. Keep going, as long as you watch your lines, we're good. Keep going down. Your sticks hold me up. Good to to go. What? Pulling out a trans, buddy?
Next, we're gonna go ahead and get the transfer case off. There is 6 studs. On the 48s, you do need to remove the underside bracket.
Really, you have to do it like on all of them.
Okay. Corrected.
I'm just saying, yeah, it makes your job a lot easier.
And then we are going to pull this drive shaft and the rear drive shaft off and swap in the lower mileage 05 drive shafts. Upgrades. All right, given that I am a salesman and not a transmission builder, we are relying heavily on the MUR. So we're gonna go ahead and get this torn down, see what kind of damage we had. Judging by the lack of fluid and brown fluid, I would say we're gonna see some clutch debris and maybe some pump carnage. So go ahead, Meyer, take it away. Converter comes off.
Pretty lovely there.
Oh,
What you want to see, boys?
that is the Willy Wonka chocolate river if I've ever seen it. God dang. Disassembly, MUR, take it away.
Thank you. This is just our pan. Okay.
Next, we're taking out the valve body mounting bolts. Please tell me those were loose because you took them out.
I took them out.
Okay. So how many bolts are there, Meyer?
There's 10.
And they're all different lengths, correct?
Yeah, and it's pretty obvious. So the 4 under on this plate, or this governor block here, are the longest ones. And then of the others, there's the shorter ones and the medium ones. And here there's 2 smaller ones and 1 medium one.
Perfect.
So it's pretty obvious. As long as you throw it in and it only has like say 1/2 inch of threaded movement, you know it's the right one. The valve body is going to fight you a little bit, so it's just the O-rings on the electrical connector over here. You just push it through as you hold it, and then from there, sometimes the parking rod will fight you. So then you just got the spinning output shaft.
And if you aren't careful with that electrical plug, there's only 1 screw. You can break the tab off and then it's just flopping around in there. So do be careful with that. All right.
Just throw that in the pan. Go through that guy later.
Yes, sir.
Well, we have the 7/16 on the gun. Take out the plugs.
And these are all the test filter plugs, correct?
Yep, there's 5 of them. 1 on that side, 4 on this side.
And the one that everybody goes after to check line pressure is going to be this one right here. That's the accumulator port. Next, the overdrive housing comes out.
Yep. Tight. All right, is that done? No one saw that.
It's the output shaft sensor. Overdrive housing comes off as 1 piece.
Yep.
And here is your overdrive apply piston.
Yep. We can leave that there for now.
And this is the back end of the intermediate shaft. What's next? The pump.
Yep. Pump's coming out.
All right, get this thing flipped over. And the pump are all these bolts right here. They are 1/2 inch or 13 mm.
1/2 inch.
And then there are 2 holes here to help you remove the pump that have threads in them.
They're a 3/8 inch bolt.
3/8 inch bolt, and then we use a claw hammer and pry them out.
Normally, yeah, this is how we do it if they're not that stuck.
And there is a gasket behind there. Sometimes it comes with the pump, sometimes it stays on the trans. And here is your pump.
I actually missed the step.
Yeah, the second gear band.
Second gear band is loose. It needs to be loosened up.
Rookie. Dude, somebody is not having a good day. And then you can slide the input shaft out. And that is the direct or third gear clutch and the forward clutch. Here we have a second gear band.
Throw these out actually.
Yeah, we don't need those where we're going.
Might have to buy a new gasket, Josh.
I bought a gasket kit, so it should be fine.
Oh, that's cool.
And then there is your forward and rear planetary gear set. And that is your low reverse drum. There's a snap ring at the base that you have to pull out, just like so. And then your low reverse drum and your low reverse band can come out, which is those 2 parts right there. And then you're left with, as you can see in there, the sprag.
I'll just put this right on the bench. You can look at it. Normally we will not really use it unless it's a personal build. We could use it on yours if you want.
No, we'll put a new one in there. And then you have your overdrive apply piston.
Yeah, my gloves are not going to have any part of that.
Can you just charge it?
We could, but I'm probably not going to.
That's your spacer.
Yeah.
And from there, you're going to go ahead, now that you can get out of here,
We'll just pull this pin out.
pull the second gear servo out. As you can see here, this is definitely a stock accumulator. It's plastic.
So then there's just a 1/4 inch driver inside. It's a 1/4 inch plug. And you can see they've RTV'd all over it. Like, what in the hell are they doing?
Yeah, and they also RTV'd the transfer case. It
But
looked like
it's like they didn't have a plug, and so they're like, oh, it's fine. We'll just use RTV instead. What the hell? I'll have to cut that away and see what's going on there. It's just a 1/4 inch plug. I can't imagine why they would.
But anyway, that is, so a lot of you guys ask on our pan off upgrade kits why you can't replace this with a billet piece. The reason why is this lever that shaft rides on comes out through the torque converter access hole.
Yeah, the trans has to be out. Oh, it's also lucky enough that that's like the last thing that's going to break in the stock system.
Yeah.
The lever, I'm sorry, the anchor and the strut are more likely.
So here is your factory strut. Again, when you turn up the line pressure too high, there's that 1/4 inch plug. When you turn up the line pressure too high, this will just buckle. And the other thing that I have personally done is I split the factory anchor in half as well. So these are some of the first upgraded parts that you put into any transmission.
It comes out.
And there's the lever. From here, we got to do the servo. Now, if you guys are doing this at home, a C-clamp will work. We have a little fancy kind of tool that we use. And now Meyer is popping out the low reverse lever arm.
Yeah, that just presses out. The overdrive housing keeps it on. So it's just O-rings you're fighting.
Yep.
Goes in there.
And then this is your low reverse servo, and this is your second gear servo.
So in stock form, they don't have that much spring behind them, so you can just pry them out.
I can tell you from experience, be careful when they're modified and you pull that spring out, stuff will go everywhere.
One thing you might run into is that you take the snap ring out and it only comes about halfway. It gets stuck like right there. What I do is I just tap it. This one doesn't really fight us, but if you're worried about the spring in there, as long as you have a thumb over it and just tap it, you should be fine. And the only reason we have spark plug pliers in the shop.
That's actually pretty cool.
Thank you.
And then this is the low reverse servo. This is one of the last servos to get upgraded.
Yeah.
And as you can see here, I'm pretty confident that whoever rebuilt this at some point, because it's a Chrysler and it's got 300,000 miles, this was a very stock rebuild.
Yeah, definitely.
And then this is your part neutral safety sensor. And that is just O-rings. Just kind of wiggle it back and forth, get it out.
Might replace this one anyway.
Yeah.
It's pretty stuck in.
Alright, so again, here's your torque converter, here's your oil pump, here's your forward and rear planetary gear set in the main case with your intermediate shaft. Here's your low reverse drum with the low reverse band. The forward clutch pack, the one on top of the input, is direct third gear or the forward. Then you also have this clutch pack at the base of the input shaft. That is going to be your forward clutch pack that is applied in all forward gears. We have our valve body and our miscellaneous parts. This is the overdrive backing plate.
With overdrive piston support.
Overdrive piston support. And that's just held on with some 17 bolts.
They're actually 3/8, but yes.
3/8 bolts.
Okay. And I'm just going to remove the plugs because you are more than likely doing a transline kit, right?
Yep. Now.
Okay, and then we're just going to take off the little tin cover here. So we can do that. Okay. Now this case is pretty much gut. The overdrive wire snap ring there.
These are the brakes, correct, Mur?
The overdrive brakes, correct.
And these apply in overdrive.
This is how you apply overdrive. These brakes get engaged and the clutches in here get disengaged.
We got our helper just going hard on the jack cart.
So we got one wavy snap ring and one.
Is that the one that everyone needs to replace?
Nope, that's the one that everyone needs to throw out.
10-4.
Okay, so that's all of them. Now we're gonna just take it over, spin it upside down, and take off this little axis cover here. These are 2 torque screws.
And there's a snap ring in there, correct? That holds the overdrive bearing in.
That's correct.
Just a salesman.
So use some of these. Wow. Now the case is pretty much empty. There's a speed sensor in here, but I guess I already take it out.
And this is your overdrive assembly. The overdrive clutches are inside of here. This is your output shaft. This is the overdrive roller bearing.
Okay.
And this is the part you're gonna need a shop press for to get it apart.
Yeah.
Not this portion, but.
So if you want to replace this bearing, take out that snap ring. From here, we're gonna use the shop press. Now this is like a. Oh, it's right here. I'm not trying. Oh, duh! It's still out here.
This is something that we made.
No, this is actually a tool you can buy for like, I want to say it's like $50, and I totally recommend it. You can try to make your own, but it kills you. I'll do the last little bit of jacking by hand, just so you know it's not binding in there, because you don't have any feel with the air option. So there's a small snap ring in here.
And that's on the sun gear.
Yeah. Boom, that's that snap ring.
And there's the internal snap ring on the drum.
Yep, and this one's broken.
Sick. Is that common?
Yeah.
Jeez.
You always replace this one.
Okay, that's the one I was talking about.
So you want to go slow, make sure it's not catching on any bits of broken snap ring. You're good. Let it loose. Just bring this all right back over to the bench. Okay, from here.
This is that spring.
Yep.
That can kill you. There's your sun gear. There's your overdrive planetary.
There's a bearing there too, by the way. The overdrive planetary.
And again, one of the things about the 48 REs is the better planets. They are a steel 6-pinion. Some of the earlier transmissions. There's your overdrive sprag.
There's just a bearing down here. And then this is pretty much the unit. You can put that in the parts washer, clean it all out. But if you want to replace the output shaft, which we'll have to do, I guess, I'm going to take the rest of the way apart.
Yeah, stock output, no good for what we're going to do to this thing.
Okay, so it's just a wire snap ring in there. Flip it over. You've got to...
What's it bind on?
What's it bind on what?
Like, what were you doing with the screwdriver?
Right now, I'm trying to get another snap ring out.
Oh,
it's identical to the first one, but it's on this side. You gotta find the end of it so I can get it out and start. There you go.
okay.
There's that. And that guy just slides out. Now this guy, what I recommend is just taking it and tapping it on the ground, because that snap ring, since that spring has been binding it in there, it's been shoving that snap ring and pinching it. So if you just do this, that snap ring will come out way easier. I need to get that other pick over there.
Oh, it's kind of a pain.
Yeah, like I say, it's been sitting there being pinched this whole time. So you might have just needed to smack it harder. There you go. This guy just comes right out. Then from here, we just support the output shaft. We're just banging this collar off. Sometimes you'll need to use a press, but this one's not being too bad.
Ta-da!
Okay,
and then
from here,
real quickly, guys, while we got this output shaft, I see a lot of guys always ask if it's a billet output shaft, if it's not a billet output shaft. The easiest way to tell is the cut back here on the splines.
Yeah.
On a billet output shaft, you will see right here is the splines taper in. On this one, you can clearly see the splines are cut into the shaft. The same goes on the input. You can see here the shaft is actually full diameter all the way through, and the splines are cut in. Whereas on the factory output, you can see the splines are actually raised past the shaft diameter. So again, quick, easy way to determine billet versus stock.
and it's worth mentioning that this is actually a standard. So even though we call it a standard spline, yes, the spline's the same, but the actual diameter of the shaft is much thicker.
Yes, which gives it some of its strength.
So
now that we have our overdrives, kind of look through them. These are definitely factory, and these are one of the clutch packs that will get upgraded to the GPZs.
yep,
Bearing comes off.
there, and that's ready to swap out. So before we throw this all together, we'll throw it in the parts washer, clean it all up, get ready.
Trash can. Now what are we gonna take apart, Mur? Forward.
Whatever. See the forward and direct.
Okay.
First.
So this is what we refer to as the forward clutch. This is the direct or third gear clutch.
Yep.
Some people also call this the forward clutch because it is in front of the input shaft.
Yeah, so generally, like if you see it's forward and direct, then this is forward, this is direct. If it's front and rear, And this is your front clutch because it's closer to the front of the transmission, and this is your rear clutch because it's closer to the rear transmission. It's kind of confusing, but once you understand what they were trying to refer to, then
It took me quite a while to wrap my head around
yeah,
that. But anyway, this clutch is engaged in all forward gears. This clutch is only engaged in reverse and third.
and overdrive technically, but yes. Now,
All right.
this pulls off there.
Again, this is your third gear or direct clutch.
Yeah, and I'm missing my.
There's a snap ring that retains it.
Yep.
And then, Meyer, tell the people, I hear all this talk about reaction plates. Obviously, those got warped.
They're warped.
What's a reaction plate? What's a steel?
So the reaction plate is just a very thick steel, and the reason it has to be thick is because when your piston is pushing up against your clutch pack, you got to think one of these thin little steels will just warp, right? It'll just bow out. So you need a nice thick reaction plate. So this is actually a common problem I see on overdrive housings, is they'll put the big thick reaction plate against the piston and then just have a steel on the back of the pack. But you got to think that just warps it. This thing will get hot and it'll just warp it out. You need that thick reaction plate to actually hold the load. So that's common that we see that on the wrong side, and that's just kind of a way to visualize it to know that you're doing it right. So anyway, these got hot, warped.
And one of the cool parts about a 48 that makes them a little bit more valuable and stronger is, I believe there's an extra clutch in the direct, is there not?
There's a extra.
Without machining anything, they're just from the factory. They're like, you know what? We know what these common rails can do. We're gonna help these boys out.
Yeah, obviously it didn't work out that well, though your fluid was kind of.
And then that is what, the apply piston?
That is your apply piston, yes.
And then
got some
on the ATSG manual that you get when you rebuild these, they have V10 and diesel. The diesel one, you can see the springs down here. You do skip 2, add 3 springs, skip 2, add 3 springs, skip 2, and then you're back to the 3 springs. That is the diesel spring layout. And then you have one of these tools. Is there any other way to do this, really? I mean, that looks like we made that.
Yeah, this is like Will Terry original, like 5 years ago, but there's not too much pressure. You can probably use a shop press somehow. Like, it's not a big deal, but this saves a lot of time. So we're just doing that.
And there's a snap ring that retains that.
There, that's what he's talking about. 3 springs, skip 2, 3 springs, skip 2.
And again, we're pulling this apart, just make sure it's all clean.
Place
And
the
there's a
O-rings.
seal in there as well.
There's an O-ring here.
And if you guys haven't caught the gist by now, a nice pick set, money, snap ring pliers. Also recommend. We use pretty much all snap-on snap ring pliers, and then we have some assorted picks, but we'll make your job easier.
Okay, so that's ready for the parts washer. This is ready too. We'll swap out the bushing. Okay.
Next, we're gonna dive into the forward clutch pack.
So this guy here, I'll actually use the forward band.
It's actually really smart. Oh, those aren't warped.
Nope, they're pretty good.
And that is your Belleville spring.
Yep. They're super wavy. Belleville and a plastic little
Spacer.
spacer isolator ring thing.
Then the input shaft comes off of the forward drum, and then you have your apply piston coming out of your input shaft, and then you have one of the selective spacers.
A Mickey Mouse spacer. And this is your input. Like, there's a couple seals on here, but that's ready to throw out. Hang on.
Heck yeah.
Want to do the honors, Josh? Beautiful.
They also make great paper towel holders too.
They do, actually. Great
Yeah.
for any bathroom.
So we'll go ahead nothing too bad here. The only damage we really saw is that direct clutch. I'm hoping my 48 pump survived the low fluid. And now we're gonna move on to taking apart the pump. All right, next you're gonna take your pump stator off of the pump. It's
6 1/2-inch bolts.
Perfect. Just pulls right out.
Yeah. So you're looking for wear here. We might resurface that.
Still not bad considering how low on fluid it was.
Yeah. This pump, I think this pump actually survived.
And that is your inner gear and your outer gear. This works very similar to a oil pump. It is a gear and rotor.
Yeah. So one thing I'll note on these is that I do like to put it the exact same way it came out. You'll look at it and say, oh, just put the little detents up. Funny thing, the outer ring has a detent on both sides. So what I do is I keep them together as a unit, and you can tell which way they're supposed to go based on this taper here. This guy's got some pitting on them. It's weird, it's like he saw some moisture at some point, but this smooth taper goes towards the torque converter, whereas this like two-step like taper goes towards the rear. So
makes
that's
sense.
how you can idea it and make sure you put it back in the same way.
That is your pump bushing, correct?
Yep, pump bushing, and you just press that out.
Sweet. So we got our pump torn apart. Now the last piece that we're going to take apart is going to be our intermediate shaft with our forward and rear planetary gear sets.
Yep.
And that is this piece right here. There's a snap ring that retains the front planetary.
This whole thing comes off as a unit.
And this is your forward ring gear and your forward planet. Again, these are the 6-pinion, very nice pieces there.
Yep.
And there's your
Throw that out actually.
thrust washer. And now this is your sun show with your sun gear. You will see some guys actually do have billet ones of these. And there's your rear planet, again 6-pinion, again steel, very nice piece. And there's your rear ring gear. What are we looking for when we're reusing? Obviously, not everybody puts new planetaries in their transmission, Meyer. What are we looking for?
So basically, we're looking for any kind of weird wear here. This is more common on the 47.
Because they're aluminum, right?
They're aluminum, and they don't use a thrust washer. So this is actually where it thrusts.
Okay.
Then you're looking for pitting on the gears. You want to make sure it rolls nice. We'll actually clean them up because sometimes the oil will kind of hide the fact that it's bad. And then we're just looking for pitting on the teeth. The very ends of the teeth, where it's actually like you'll see grooves on some of them. That's actually how it's machined. That's not bad. You're looking for pitting on the actual wear surfaces. This one looks and feels fine so far. We'll look at it a little closer, but this looks like we can reuse it.
Awesome. And then one of the cool things we're going to do with this transmission is we're going to get rid of the thrust bearings. Now, due to the fact that we work at a performance diesel shop and some of these modifications have taken us a while to figure out, we are not going to be showing you guys how to rollerize your planetaries, but I do want you guys to know that we are planning on doing that. It gets rid of all of the thrust bearings and it adds a Torrington style bearing in there. Again, out of respect to our bosses and the company we work for, there are certain things that we're not going to be able to show you when we go to put this thing together, but I just want you guys to have the full scoop. Okay, so we're going to end this video here. This is going to be a probably 2 or 3 part series. Again, we got the transmission out of the truck. It was low on fluid. The fluid was brown. After tearing it apart, Meyer, I don't think it looked as bad as we thought.
I was expecting it to look a little bit worse, so you're kind of lucky there.
I think when I bought it from the dealership, it might have been full and it's kind of leaked out. I thought it was the rear main. It appears it might have just been the transmission.
And the transmission was so black, it looked like oil.
Yeah. So hopefully this helps you guys kind of disassemble things you need to look at, maybe some of the tools you need to do the job. It is not that hard. Luckily for me though, I have good friends that have a lot more knowledge than I do. So a huge thank you to Meyer for getting this thing taken apart for us. We'll do the next video will be assembly of this transmission. So hopefully you guys like this. Subscribe, comment, like the video, and get ready for part 2.